Mhm.
All right. So, welcome everybody to another Tough Topic Tuesday. This one is super special as it is a collaborative for our Mind, Body, Soul Justice initiative that we're releasing across campus. We know that our campus partners are doing a lot to kind of take care of things on campus and off campus, especially for those of you that are remote like us. We hope to kind of bring this forward and get y'all plugged into that. With that said, our topic today is we are not okay. Eh, plain and simple. All right. But there's a little more depth to that. Maybe you've heard that phrase, maybe you even said it before, but getting to the real heart of it is how much of it have you actually believed to be true? How much of it have you allowed yourself to permission to feel and feel fully? And just kind of what places are we coming from as we kind of deal with the world and all its pandemics, of course, COVID, but also to, all the other pandemics that exist, particularly racism, homophobia, trying to tell women what they can do and not do with their bodies, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on, as we know. So with that said, I do have folks joining me for this dope conversation this morning. So my panelists, could you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, everyone. My name is Acacia Santos. I use the she series pronouns. I'm a residence director in Little Building. I supervise the upper floors. Shout out to them because they're pretty amazing. And I'm here today to talk on this panel with y'all, see how things are going.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Flores. I am also a residence director. I'm the RD of Paramount, now the W Hotel, and I use the she series pronouns. And I am also excited to talk on this panel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shan Leon. I am also a residence director here in Piano Row, pronouns he, him, his. I am so glad to be able to be part of this for many reasons.
Thank you, my panelists. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jamaica. I go by the He series, director of clinical student affairs. I'm also joined by my dope ass team. Probably can't say that on radio, but I done said it. As well as a bunch of other guest audience today. Team, do you quickly want to introduce yourself so people know who's here? We have a few people. We can go ahead and do some quick intros. And I also want to say, if you can, what brought you to this conversation?
I can go first. To me, and I keep on both unmuting. I can take the baton. So I'm Jaleesa. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work both for Emerson Counseling and Psychological Services and also intercultural. And I would say that a lot of the work that I do is around people not being okay and giving permission to not be okay. So I'm glad to be here as a guest and not necessarily as a panelist to kind of see how that works on the other side of things. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
So I am Tamia Jordan. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm with Intercultural Student Affairs. And this topic it's timely. I've been feeling it personally for a long time, and now I feel like we're all sort of quaking in our boots a little bit and collectively, and so I'm really excited that we get to speak about it together.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from the Center for Spiritual Life. There are so many reasons that I'm here today. First of all, I just love the people that are involved in this particular program today. So I felt like, of course I have to be there. And then secondly, I think similar to what Jaleesa was saying about providing space for people to say that they are not doing okay, is something that feels so core to my own work and values, and yet I find that very, very hard just as a human myself. So I'm just really looking forward to also being here to listen in and to be a part of it today.
Hi, I'm Amanda Turnley. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work with student care and support. And the vast majority of the students that I work with are not okay, and I have conversations, I feel like, daily about how it is okay to not be okay. And so this is, such a timely conversation, and particularly for Emersonians, I feel like there's, it's not always accepted to not be okay, or at least to be public about that. So I think that this is, a really great conversation to have, and I'm excited to be here.
Hey everyone, Matthew Carney. The pronouns that I use are he, him, his. Also residence director here at Emerson. The work I do, very similar to all my other colleagues, working with students who are not okay. Big reason why I came is I'm not okay, and I know I struggle with that balance of, saying I'm okay and not really meaning it. So just really here to listen in and yeah.
All right, thank you very much to everybody that, felt compelled to share it, appreciate it. And making sure you shared if I didn't, accidentally didn't type your name in the chat box, appreciate it. And for those that didn't share, that's totally okay too. We appreciate that. That's totally on you. That's always yours to own. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. My panelists, when I, sent you the initial email and was like, hey, you want to come through on this conversation? What did you feel? What was your reaction to that? If you feel like being honest with everybody here. I'm just seeing some faces. I love seeing it. Y'all can't see it in the studio, but on Zoom right now, these faces, I'm loving it. Go ahead, Akasi.
I think when you first sent me an email about this and I read about what the topic was, I was like, oof, are we sure we want me talking about this information? And even still, I'm nervous about it, but I know I'm myself am not okay. And I know, if anything, I'm probably an expert on what it is to be a woman of color in this experience. So I initially scared, but feeling a lot better about it now.
Go in. Y'all can just jump in. Christina, go ahead. Jump in.
Okay. When I first read the email, I think for me, I was like, wow, how did someone get into my brain and put into words like everything I've been feeling for the past, I don't even know how long. So it was this moment of, oh, that makes so much sense. All of my best friends are Geminis. Everything is really, coming full circle right now. So it's just this moment of like, whoa, this is the most honest thing I have gotten in my inbox in quite a long time. And it was a really grounding feeling, if that makes sense.
My reaction when I got the email, let's see, I'm pulling it up. So we got the email like 11:36 in the morning on Wednesday. And then I responded at 12:02. And so for those of you that don't know, I most definitely, unless I'm on duty, I never ever responding to emails or working between the hours of 12 and 1 o'clock, as that's my time. But I responded to this email during that time, and I said in all caps, sign me up. This is my squad. I miss all of you. And Jamaica had shared like an explanation, context behind it, and thought process, and I was just so excited, and I said that I was in the moment I saw like the title, which was "We Are Not Okay." Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that background. Thank you for y'all's honesty and just kind of bringing it forward, kind of how this all kind of transpired. I appreciate y'all, and that I'm more than thankful that y'all are here and just even on your time decided I'm coming through, not just for myself but for the community that's showing up right now. So I appreciate you. Thank you. And thank you for those honest reactions. So let's talk a little bit more. I think that first off, when people kind of like hear like I'm not okay, there's almost kind of like, what do you do with that information, right? So I think if you're comfortable in sharing when you hear that for yourself, or you say it to yourself, what's that process look like for you? How do you even arrive at that answer? Is there some telltale signs that are like, okay, I'm going through it, I'm going through it, I'm going through it, and you just keep grinding, and at some point you're like, okay, hold up, bitch. I'm sorry, studio. hold up, what's going on, Brad? I know y'all gonna have to control me some. You should know how I am by now. For those of you who don't know me, welcome. This is who I am on a general, no filter.
You know that meme with the dog sitting at the table and everything's on fire, and then on the fire there are like things written like in it? We said that to each other all the time in our group. We've even made it our Zoom backgrounds like during meetings and stuff. And I think for me, it's when I get to the point where I realize I'm the dog and I'm like sitting there going, I'm fine, everything's great, everything's really great. And then I have to smile harder and have a moment where I'm like, oh, like this feels hard today. It feels hard to say that everything's great and things are super okay. I also have, I think, like signs for me, like if I have a hard time getting out of bed, that's how I know that I'm reaching my limit. Because sleeping is like my safety net. I take a lot of naps. That's how I get through life. And so when I want to do that more, I'm like, okay, I need to check in with myself here.
Appreciate that. The concept of saying, you know, hold up, wait a minute, I've just become the dog in the scenario. Oh no. But I also think that's something that strikes me a little bit is when you said, when I have to smile harder. And that concept of just kind of keep that front a little bit because I need to, for whatever reasons, right, that exist for yourself personally. But then what does it mean when it's just like, this is hard and it's getting harder? Thank you for that. Acacia, Sean, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. It actually takes me an incredibly long time now that I'm thinking about it to check in with myself to acknowledge that I'm not doing okay. I think I don't know if it was the way I was raised, like the work ethic I have. I still don't really know how to pinpoint it, but like there's so much to saying to myself, I'm not doing okay. I think I realized that I'm not doing all right when I myself feel, my friends tell me I have sunshine and I smile like sunshine and I am like an embodiment of light, which I really appreciate and really accept humbly. So when I guess when I myself feel like my sunshine is dim, when I am forcing, like Christina said, when I'm forcing a smile and I'm trying to force joy, I feel it and it feels wrong. It doesn't feel right. It feels fake. And I am not somebody who likes to feel fake with those kinds of emotions because it's so important to be valid and genuine with it. So when it's an unbelievably overcast day for me, that's when I finally stop and check in. And I also usually stop and check in when somebody who really cares about me pulls me aside and they're like, what's going on? And I thankfully am around people who do that enough for me. So yeah, it's just when everything feels fake in me, I think that's when I realize. And I recognize I have to start making some changes.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the honesty of saying, you know, it takes me a long time and having to kind of process like, dang, wait a minute, why does it take me a long time? Was it this? Is it how I grew up? Was it just what I'm used to? And so maybe I need a little bit of new modality, but then also returning to the facts that you know about yourself, right? That like, wait a minute, I am sunshine though. The people around me let me know that I am. And I know in the moments what joy and sunshine feels like. And dang, when it feels like an overcast, like, hold up a minute, something's not right. So I appreciate that immensely for you saying that. And the concept of not having to force joy, because that just sounds convoluted. Joy should never be forced. Thank you for that. Tapated, you got anything?
There's so many like tells or things I feel like I could share that allow me to know like when I'm not okay. And I feel like for a long time I haven't been okay, right? And so it's more so of a matter of like am I really not doing okay right now versus like I'm okay right now versus I'm not. Yeah, so it's like, yeah. And so I don't know, certain things would be like when I feel like I'm just going through the motions, right? Just like, yep, getting this done. Yep, that's done. Whether it's like work or personal or whatever. That's definitely like a huge thing for me when I'm not enjoying like the things that I do every day, whether that's conversations with people or just life. As I do find happiness in that, but so that when I start to not necessarily experience that, it's a big tell for me. Yeah.
Word. I appreciate you just putting that atmosphere. Like, what does routine look like, and then what does routine look like when I'm just going through the motions to go through it, just to kind of like survive in this mess right now. That's all that. Yeah. Oh, really. Audience participants, feel free to, if you want to ask a question, you can pose it to me privately in the chat or in the chat box itself. I also wanted to invite y'all into this conversation to have a leeway now that you're hearing a little bit from our panelists. I don't want you to not, feel like you're included in this conversation as well. So that's that for you. I do have more questions, particularly, Shen, what you said kind of resonated a little bit hard. And it kind of came up earlier in conversation with Sis, at least about a way it says, where we talked about, how long have I known that I've not been okay? And so my next question kind of deals kind of in like the depth of this conversation, how it kind of pulled out and talking about like culturally the push and grind of American society, the push and grind culturally of being maybe a BIPOC human and what that means to then perform in American society and American corporations and work environments and school and academia and all those things, right? How do you think this relates essentially into this topic of not being okay, having to come up against like that pressure, whether it's in American society, whether it's being an Emersonian, performing academically? Does that provide enough context, kind of the questions that I'm asking and putting those things together? Willie had a hand up.
Yeah, hey, can I jump in?
Go ahead, jump in. Why not? Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So what you just said really resonated with me because you said something how like in American society like we work a lot, and a lot of the times that some of us have a lot of feelings that are kind of like under wraps that we don't really express. And I feel a lot of the times that whatever pain that I'm feeling, I'm always like converting it into my work. So I feel like this has been said a lot, but I always just like turned my pain into art, and I just kept doing that. But I think that vicious cycle, I don't think that's like sustainable of just turning pain into art. So I just think that there's a better route to come out of this than to keep recycling your feelings.
No, appreciate the jump in, honestly. Right. I don't know if you can see in the comments right now. They said, Willie, you better preach. You better come on with it. Yes, right. this concept of, well, I'm feeling this way. What do I do with it? Well, why is the auto response to then continued productivity? Is it productivity for productivity's sake? For what? For who? For you? I don't know, because sure, you're creating art, but, and maybe that's part of the release and the expression, but you're still hurting. Oh, damn. So how then do we sit and still deal with the hurt? Yeah, that's deep. So I appreciate you jumping in and letting it be known.
Whew, wow.
Well, I think how I've seen American society affect myself and others, like, well, I mean, I'm under the understanding, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, because if I'm really wrong, I need to, I need some correcting. I'm under the impression that if I'm not a productive person, then I'm not worth anything. If I'm not constantly producing, if I'm not showing up and showing out and just trying to prove my worth all of the time, then I'm not worth attention. I'm not worth love. I'm not worth anything. That's what I grew up seeing from others outside of my own environment, not in my home, because obviously I am not like that. But if I wasn't achieving, I wasn't okay. And so I think you asked like kind of when we first like realized we weren't okay to like now, and like how like this pandemic's affecting us, how capitalism's affecting all of those things. I don't think I've been okay since high school, if I had to pinpoint it. When one of my classmates told me the only reason I got scholarships, the only reason I was getting praise was because I was the Black girl in the classroom. I got the Black girl scholarship, like for the Black students. That's what my worth was tied to, my race. And from there, I learned I had to keep grinding and keep trying harder in this society in order to be valued. So I haven't been okay since then. And I think that's how America affects us and puts us down and keeps us down. But yeah, like Willie is saying, like, how do we rise from that? I'm still not sure, dude. I'm hoping that this conversation and whatever else sparks from it is going to show me how to rise from that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you even tracking a little bit, right? You're like, wait a minute, hold up. Let me bring this back a little bit further. The things that you said to me that really resonated is the concept that, like, if I'm not producing or achieving, then I'm not worthy. Oh, ouch, right? But let's think about society, right? And the ways in which it asks folks to labor, and honestly, at times labor for free, right? Without the due diligence or the due credits or the due roses, right? We could go on, right? But essentially speaking to what you were saying, your classmate talking about you getting the Black Girl Scholarships, not recognizing like there's a reason why you got the Black Girl Scholarship. Do we want to talk about where you started from? No? Okay, we're not ready for that conversation? Okay, shut the hell up. Shut up. Right? But it's still kind of a concept, right? You know how I am already, you know, shut up. But it goes back to this concept again of not being okay, but there's a lot of things affecting the not okayness. Saying for ourselves what we're not okay with. There's a lot we're not okay with. And it makes sense then why we are not okay, especially if you identify as a BIPOC human in a society that continues to value your worth on your productivity output, especially when you do it oftentimes for free or a lesser value because it benefits American society as a whole. Whew, okay, Jesus, let me get off my soapbox. I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me go back, turn to the panelists. Go ahead.
Something I think about often is, so I moved to the US when I was 6, and my parents were international students. That's why we moved here. And I went through the process of learning English and the whole immigration process in this country. And I think often about the children of the generation who is the first to move to the US. Because I know Shen and I have had this conversation before. So many of us want nothing more than to just go back to our countries and go back to where our families worked so hard to leave from. And there's this like dichotomy of like, there's a reason why they left and why it's been instilled in us to work so hard here in the US. But for a lot of us, or at least speaking for myself, the idea of going back to the Dominican Republic where I'm from holds nothing but desire, because I feel like that's where I will feel like I am whole and like I'm accepted and like I'm myself, which is something I can't feel in a country that was never made for me and that, you know, will never want me. Um, and also, something I've done a lot of work on is I laugh when I'm uncomfortable and nervous. So please don't think that I think that it's funny. I just realized some of you don't know that I do that. But I like being busy because when I'm not busy, I don't know what to do with myself. And I've learned recently that that's actually a trauma response, and that people who have been through a lot of trauma don't know what to do when you're just sitting and you're not focused on anything or like doing anything. And I think being, you know, an immigrant in this country in this day and age, or a person of color, we are often so traumatized by everything that's going on around us that if you stop for too long and you think about it all, it gets so overwhelming. And then you're like, wow, I don't know how to fix this within myself right now. And then it's just a whole spiral of like not okayness. I don't know if that made any sense. I was just rambling, but I hope it did.
That made complete sense. You was clear. Like, I heard it. I think the audience heard it. You got comments in the saying, oh, it did. Check and validated. No, I appreciate that. The concept, and even saying, I laugh when I get nervous for those you don't know. Not that you need to explain yourself, but the fact that you did, just so that people had context to bring more understanding to like, dang, where do I feel whole? It's not in this place that was designed for me, but then how do I get to places that are designed for me? Tamia, do you want to come in up on this? You can, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, Christina just said something, and it just reminded me so much of an experience that I have had. And that is that, you know, although I was born in the United States, from the United States, um, there are places in the United States where I have felt more whole. Um, and some of those include the one that most immediately caught my attention was, so I grew up in New Jersey, but my mother and my father grew up in Alabama and Georgia, and they grew up my mother was born in 1942, my father was born in 1939, so they grew up, you know, they were sharecroppers, their families, and it was a horrible time down there for Black folks. And so for them, the definition of succeeding was leaving there and moving to the Northeast. Um, my sister went to undergrad at University of Maryland and then stayed in Maryland for like 10 years. And then after I went to undergrad at University of Virginia, and after I graduated, I stayed in Charlottesville for 4 more years. So I was there 8 years total. And I had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of there, and my sister had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of, you know, the DMV area, and she would love to go back there. And I ended up in the Northeast again for mostly because I wanted to be close enough to home, but not right at home, you know? So this place made, you know, kind of the most sense. At the time, it was like here or Philly. And I just think about the number of times that my mother would say, like, we worked so hard to get out of there. And like, and now my children want to go back there. Like my children all, you know, they all want to go back there. So I definitely that resonated with me, and I hadn't thought about that in a while. But then also two other things, just when I traveled to Ghana twice, and I always say that I'm most myself, I'm my best self when I travel to places, you know, at or below the equator. So when I've gone to Ghana or Cuba or Colombia, I've just been the Aruba. I've been the happiest I've ever been. Um, and the last thing I would share is that there is one place in the U.S. that whenever I go there, I feel like I've arrived with my people, and that is the Bay Area. That's Oakland. And my friends from grad school, I have a lot of, even though I went to grad school in Vermont, there were a lot of Californians there, don't ask, in the program. And they would tell me that. They're like to me, as soon as you go to Oakland, you're going to be like, these are your people, this is your tribe. And really, like, every time I go there, I just feel it. And if not for a multitude of circumstances, I would make my way back there in a heartbeat.
No, that's real. I think something that's definitely interesting. Thank you for sharing to me that kind of experience of, you know, as much as the places where we're not okay, that doesn't feel like home, it's interesting that I think about the ways in which we find home, right? I know that this is where I feel at home. This is where I feel whole. But also that I love too, to me, that you included people. Like I could go there because this is where my people are. And so I think there's something very powerful to that that needs to be leaned into a little bit more. Yes, it's okay not to be okay. Yes, we acknowledge like the institutional things and the things that exist here in this country. But we also recognize and acknowledge the powerful things that, I don't know, almost usurp that transcend that. And that's kind of being in the space with like the people or even just the acknowledgement itself. I didn't want to cut anything off. And did you want to go?
Yeah, could you just like, I guess, give me a spark note of the prompt? Just listening to everyone's response to the like question, I lost the question.
Yeah, sure. It was just this concept of how long have you known of like that you weren't okay in a sense, right? Especially being here.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, going to like what Akasa shared about like going back in time, right? And being reminded of like you like you don't belong here. Like I would say like that has me rethinking what my common response is to this. Which I kind of have to like think about a bit. But in regards to like being post like grad school, or I guess working in student affairs, working in higher ed, when I felt like I was not okay was when I had people publicly, openly disrespecting me. That were other staff, professional staff, like yelling in my face, swearing at me, just being very disrespectful, which resulted in nothing. And to this day, from then through now, having experiences like those where no one is held accountable except me. And feeling like in order to prove that I belong, I could do that through my work, which was not the case because the only thing that mattered about my work was, or the work that I did was, if somebody else benefited from it and could somehow take the credit for it. So when I knew I was not okay was when I started working here in July of 2017. I was 183 pounds. I could I was lifting weights a lot. I could squat like 450 pounds. I could deadlift like high 500s. I was thick. Now the lowest I got was 138, and I'm right now like 142. Right, like and there were bouts of time where I was like lost like 30 pounds of weight in like 2 months. Like I remember one year, like fall, I think it was my second year here. A previous student had seen me at the org fair when, pre-COVID, and they were like, Shannon, where'd you go? Like talking about the fact that I had lost so much weight, like I had like disappeared, like a part of me had disappeared. And, I was not hurt by the comment, but it was just very much like this is very noticeable, right? And if you know me, for those that know me, like I don't, like if I'm not doing okay, I'll tell people, and I did, right? And I still do, but nothing, which is part of why this conversation is important to me, and I had no hesitation to be part of it. But what's frustrating is that, like the people that are held accountable when things are not done correctly or bad things are happening, also so the people that are not held accountable are also the same people that are the ones that are actually cared for when they're not doing okay. Yeah.
You just laid out so much in terms of what I'm thinking about and resonating, and then just my personal relationship to you and the ways that, that I love you and care so deeply for you. And what you bring about is this concept of, and not being okay, someone's, doing the harm towards you, right? And it's not just once, it's repeated offenses, to be quite frank and quite honest. And yet still somehow it's okay for them to continue that harm while you still take it, in whatever ways it comes about, and have to somehow still deal and are still expected to be okay and to still do your job and do X, Y, Z and continue as if nothing happened when everything has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a lot. Sis wants to respond, so I'm gonna let her respond while I sit and try not to low-key figure out how I'm gonna jump some people. Go ahead.
There has been so much that folks have talked about throughout this conversation that has just pinged so many things in me. And I think, Shen, when you kind of talk about what you have experienced working at this institution, I think where my mind goes is that for me, when I think about how long I've not been okay, there have been stages. And I think that first stage was this sense that I was not okay. And I think in a lot of ways, like that was protective. I think it's something that my family, growing up African American, there needed to be this sense that there was a way out, and that way out was work, and that if I worked hard enough, if I proved my worth to enough people, then I would get that okay. And I think in college, kind of speaking to Acacia's point, is when I started to develop some language around like, oh, there's this recognition of what was happening, whereas before it was very pre-conscious. And what I will say is that moving from being a part of an institution as a student to being a part of an institution as an employee, I think has been a different stage of I am not okay and like this is not okay. And shifting the focus a little bit of like, you know, the way that we framed this is like, I am not okay, but like this system is not okay. And and when I say we, I mean people of color specifically are not meant to be okay in this system, because the system doesn't function if we are okay. And the people who thrive in this system, who are okay or who are cared for when they aren't okay, I mean, part of me feels like, I won't say this about the individual, but an individual who can be okay in a system, there's a pathology to that system. That like, if the system is sick, then the only people who can feel truly comfortable in it are those who either have adapted to the point where it doesn't matter, which we would call, you know, being numbed out, and that's not a way to live one's life, or are actively benefiting from a system in which so many people are not okay, and that's also not okay. And so I don't necessarily feel like there's much that I can kind of uplift in what everyone has been saying, because it's just all so real. But I think that what is sticking on me is that there has just been a different level of awareness of how difficult, how hard, how not okay things are. And I have been as a result of how things are, since working at this institution. And it's not even that I necessarily think that it's specific to Emerson, though that's a whole other conversation that could be had. But I think it's just a different level of understanding of how far a system will go to protect some and not others, and just compounds that feeling of not okay, of being, you know, sometimes the only person in a room saying like, this isn't okay, but if nobody else is seeing that, then clearly I must be the wrong one in some way, shape, or form. So I just want to thank everyone for being so vulnerable about what that experience has been like over time.
Absolutely. And thank you for, you know, jumping into the conversation and putting more context on that. I love how you made the distinction of, you know, we were talking about I am not okay, but then, you know, there's all these pieces to it that result into why I'm not okay, why we are not okay, right? We look at the bigger picture of the system itself. And so that kind of moves us into the situation of like, is, you know, when people say, or like hear that phrase, like, we are not okay, I'm not okay, there seems to be like usually a strong aversion to it, maybe even an avoidance of it, or kind of to other people's reactions, dealing with other folks being like, oh, well, skirt, like, you know, they like tiptoe around it, or like, maybe I'm gonna go deal with something else. So what does it then mean, especially in the space that we're doing a lot of, just acknowledging that? Like, is there power to that? Is there something brewing here? Is there more? Of course, we've always been aware. Of course, we've always felt it, right? But is there something going on with being able to like name it, to say it, to open it up a little bit more, to add the depth that each one of you have honestly added to it? What's going on right now? I just kind of want to make sure we take some time and some space to acknowledge what's going on right now as far as the processing goes, as far as the dive has gone. So I want to open up the space a little bit. And panelists, I'll give you first rights to respond, and then of course audience members, feel free to respond as well.
I think there's great power and honest beauty is like the best way I can describe it in saying to yourself that you're not okay. I think sometimes we're like, you don't want it, don't speak it out because then you give it power. But I don't think, I don't think it gives it power. I think it helps you reclaim your power, some of what you've lost because you aren't okay. I think if you can acknowledge it, you can say it, you're facing it, which is so scary. It's terrifying. But the courage to sit there and admit to yourself in a society that tells you if you're not okay, you're not worth a damn, to say it out loud, even if it's just to you, I'm not okay, and to begin working towards being okay or figuring out how you can change your situation to be okay, whatever. There's beauty to that. And if you can't, and as I'm thinking about it, that kind of resistance, because that's what I was thinking of when y'all were talking, Chin, when you started speaking. The system is broken. You resisting the system, you noticing things that are wrong, doesn't mean like you're the problem. You're the solution, is what I'm understanding from that. Because if you're not, I mean, if the system isn't built for you, if you're actively fighting against the system, like you're acknowledging what's so messed up about it and what's forcing you to not be okay. There's beauty to that. And even if there's a whole system working against you, that doesn't change the fact that you recognize that and you're fighting it. So I think it's important to say to yourself, I'm not okay. And even if there's nobody standing behind you, you have you. And that's the only thing I think that really matters.
Yeah. And Akasia, you and I have talked about this many a times, and I think that hearing what was said earlier by Julissa about like not only leaving it at just like I'm not okay, but like this isn't okay, has been like what has also like been helpful, right? In being able to like sustain and like maintain and continue, because it does allow like that level of what is it, like reclaiming of your time and your value, because it's like I'm not okay, what is being asked of me and what's happening to me is not okay. So like, for example, like me not answering your email between 12 and 1 and me not working after hours when I'm not on duty is fine. Is that right there is like having an understanding of I'm not okay and that this isn't okay is what helps me be able to commit to my decision to those things, which for such a long time I wasn't able to. I was too hopeful in the system. And I continued to forgive it and forgive it and forgive it and give it another chance and another chance and another chance. 50 pounds later.
I feel like there's a lot of processing space going on right now, and that is more than okay. I'm more than happy with that, y'all. It's called Tough Topic Tuesday for a reason. It wasn't supposed to be easy. Okay. Hope y'all are feeling the weight of everything, but I hope that as much as you're feeling the weight, I hope that as much as you're feeling it and talking about it, there's something that's, I don't know, maybe alleviating the pressure a little bit. I think as a team, we do these tough topics because number one, we know that we're going to come together in a community, right? Number two, we're going to have these conversations and we're going to be vulnerable to them and allow them to just kind of flow however they flow. And we're going to say what we got to say. And then together, though we're still processing, and that's more than okay. And I think there's that as well. And being free and however way this conversation takes shape and form. Christina, Willie, I saw your hand up. You want to go?
Yeah, I wanted to open up a little bit because I feel like a lot of the things everyone was saying was just like, it's crazy how much it's resonating with me. Like, I can't believe, like, I find it hard to believe that other people feel this way because I don't think I ever open up this much because I'm always so afraid to be so open. But I'm just thankful that we're in a space where we can do that. But yeah, like, I want to open up to a situation that I had like last night. It was a situation where I had someone on my mind who I didn't want to confront. So basically, I'm trying to relate this topic to everyone else, but I had this situation where I wanted to confront, but I was constantly concealing my feelings about it, and I didn't want to be honest with myself. But then it took me like a couple months to finally reach out to this person and come forward and be honest about my feelings. I feel like a lot of people may, get to that point where they're being honest and confronting like some type of like opposition or some type of like pressing force. And I feel like being honest with my feelings and being like truly how I feel and how I am, it really felt enlightening to do that, just to be able to. So yeah, but that's what I just want to open up and share that.
Oh, word. I mean, just the concept of honesty, right? Especially to yourself, which the truth to yourself should matter the most out of anything. And so it definitely does relate. Absolutely. Appreciate it. Christina, I'm going to have you kind of wrap up with a last comment, and then we're going to go around and wrap this up, y'all. We can go around all day, but we got a time limit.
I think going off of everything that Shen was saying, I think there's also a lot of strength in finding solidarity in each other, because I think that part of the way the system works is that it makes you feel like you're the only one who thinks these things or who is experiencing these things. And so a lot of the things that like me, Shen, and Acacia do is we check in with each other and we go, is this you too? Or is it just me? Or, is it a me problem or is it a we problem? And I think that like having spaces like this where we can all look at each other and say, this is going on, we are not okay. And that's a strong we. And that's okay for us to talk about and realize makes it even more of a community. Because then like there's a lot of times where I like stay in my head and I'm like, this is just me. No one else is thinking this. And then like someone will make a comment and I'm like, oh, you do. Whoa. And then you find things that like make you happy. Like for me and Acacia, I'll speak for the two of us. One of them is Shen's laugh. We talk a lot about whenever we get a laugh from Shen, it means a lot to us because his laugh is really funny and it's like really sweet to hear. And then there are like different levels of Shen's laugh. Like there's one he does when he's like really surprised and didn't think something was funny until he like laughed. And then there's one that's like genuine, pure happiness. And we talk a lot about how like when that happens, it's a good day and we know that we're all gonna be okay and things are gonna get better. And it's probably not the healthiest to gauge, how good your day is gonna be based on someone laughing. But I think it's like ways we find a community within the struggle. Like, yes, everything sucks, but if Shen laughs today, it sucks a little less. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I'm gonna start crying, so I need to stop. But you find like we find these little tiny things that we're like, this is a community, and we are together.
Absolutely, y'all. I appreciate you saying that and putting it out on the forefront. about what you mean to each other, right? And what solidarity means, and finding those spaces with each other. And for those of you that joined us today, being open about jumping into a space with strangers and being like, oh, actually, wait a minute. Okay, they're not so bad. Oh, hold up. Oh, we can talk about some shit. I mean, some stuff. You know, I got to get this studio thing right, y'all. I'll get it right one day. But regardless of that, we are reaching time. So I do want to give a proper closeout to this. Number one, thank you. Thank you, panelists, for being real and saying what you got to say. Not typically to me, typically it gets edited, but you know, I'm just not good at it. It's okay, it's fine. But also to thank you for our audience members who joined us today and jumped in and said what you had to say. As we go around, I kind of want to give you a minute to think about what you're taking away from this conversation and what you feel comfortable enough of putting out there into the atmosphere. You know, this is just a starter. If you connected with somebody here and you're like, okay, they're mad dope, I don't want to get to know them, make a connection. We're all pretty easily findable. Intercultural is easily findable. Your RDs that are here right now are really easily findable. Probably pestered them enough. So if you want to give them a break, you can holler at me, I'm down. I also want to put in the chat a resources guide. So every Tough Topic Tuesday, we've just been compiling a resource list dealing with the topic. So when it comes to not being okay, what are thinking about small steps that you can do, but also just thinking about what's enough for now, right? And allowing that permission. Kind of going off what Christina said, you know what, if Shen's laugh is the thing that gets you through the day, okay, it's enough for now. And it works. I'm more than happy with that. So feel free to add and look at that Google Doc. But I want to give you a minute right now to just think of your takeaway, and then we'll go around and close it out with that. Is that cool? Bet. I'm going to set a timer, and then I'm going to come back in. If you don't feel comfortable saying it, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat box, and I'll read it for you.
I just wanted to just thank everyone for just opening up and being so honest. This was brought to my attention through Shen because we had a conversation earlier, and he brought up this meeting you guys had, and I'm so thankful that I did come and just listen and participate. This was like amazing. You guys don't even know how much this has impacted me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would say my takeaway is really impacted by what you were saying, Willie, actually, when you talked about that being open and being honest with yourself and with other people. And something that I started to think about towards the end was just ways in which we have weaponized like the very thing that makes us human, of our emotions. And we have, like, as a culture, kind of gone towards like just logic should be the only thing that ever kind of impacts what we do. And how, even when I think about the ways in which I've been undermined as a Black woman, as being like an angry Black woman or overly emotional or this or that, is just another way in which we are denying humanness to anyone who's not, you know, a straight white man. And so that's something that, like, my mind is just kind of like buzzing around in this moment of like, how do I reclaim that humanity? And I think especially, you know, things that Shen was talking about in terms of having those limits and being able to say, I'm not okay, is a way of reclaiming that. So those are my parting thoughts.
So my thoughts are everything that Jaleesa just said. And then along with the idea, I want to reflect more on how the idea that the people in power are the folks that get taken care of when they're not okay. Because that's so true, but to hear it said so plainly, it just struck me. And so I want to think about that, and then I want to push people in power to think about that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add on, yes, Tamia, that was exactly what was coming up for me too, was that clear, poignant point. And then just two other takeaways from me. One was, I believe something Acacia said, which was the power and the beauty even that comes from saying I'm not okay. And I was just kind of going back into my own mind of times I've said that, and like I always cry when I say it, and I feel like like something just broke through and was released. And so I just was really feeling that with you, and haven't thought about it in a while myself. So that's the second takeaway. And then just spaces like this one that just had so much truth and depth. And my takeaway is just that, like, I just really value spaces like this. I'm just feeling so grateful for it, and for my twin, for Jamaica, for facilitating it and holding it really beautifully.
Anybody else? You don't have to. I just want to make sure before we all disperse.
I would say my takeaway is acknowledging that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to admit not okayness, and that I don't have to pretend to be strong, and learning the difference of just like being strong and being numb.
Let me just retweet that for y'all. The difference between being strong and being numb. I'm gonna just go ahead and retweet that. I just, just in case they didn't hear it the first time. Something to be clear. Okay. Is that everyone that wanted to share today? Okay. With that said, definitely, okay not to be okay. Take care of yourselves today and every day. Whatever is enough because you're enough. Does that make sense? That's a little bit simplified, but sometimes you got to keep it simple, especially when things are shortening. I love everybody on this call. I love y'all. For those that came through, thank you so much for coming through. There's a lot of love going all up in the chats. I hope y'all are reading that. People are appreciative. People are grateful. It's okay. I'm going to cry after this. I ain't going to lie to you. It's fine. And there's just a lot of love. And I hope you're feeling that. And I hope that carries you too in the moments where nothing else carries you. Okay. So thank you all. Take care of yourselves. I'm going to sign out and I'm going to get this uploaded. Thank you all very much. Bye, y'all.
Peace out. Thanks, everyone.
Stop this recording.